Okay, so we're diving deep today into Conclave.
Conclave.
Yeah, it's this new thriller. It's about the election of a new pope.
Mm.
And you'd think, going into it that it would be all serious, and somber.
Right.
But all these sources we've got,
Yeah.
they paint a picture that's kind of this wild mix
Yeah.
of high-stakes drama, but also surprisingly sharp humor, like almost a papal Mean Girls
Wow.
with a dash of, Knives Out intrigue.
Really? That's an interesting combination.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It is fascinating to me, though,
Uh-huh.
how these sources are kind of all over the map
Okay.
when it comes to, like, the tone
Yeah.
of the film.
Right.
Some reviewers are praising the film. They're saying it's a serious examination of
Yeah.
faith and politics within the church, right?
Sure.
But then you have others calling it a stupid religious thriller.
Oh, wow.
Even going so far as to call it a sassy papal soap opera.
So, like, completely different takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And get this. One reviewer even goes as far as to compare Conclave
Right.
to Avengers Infinity War.
Whoa. Hold on. Like the Marvel movie.
Yeah. But for Catholic viewers, that's what they said.
Okay, so like a major event movie.
Yeah, exactly.
That's quite a statement.
right.
Like, what are they trying to say here? It seems like they're trying to say that the filmmakers
Yeah.
are like walking this tightrope where they want the film to be thought-provoking,
Yeah.
but also wildly entertaining at the same time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, honestly, that can be really hard to pull off.
Really hard. So let's unpack this whole tone thing a little bit further, right?
Okay.
So some reviewers are finding
Uh-huh.
the film's deeper messages
Okay.
about humanity and organized religion
Yeah.
to be like a little bit heavy-handed,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, they're saying that there is this thread of humor
Right.
that's woven throughout. And other reviewers picked up on this too. They point to the quippy dialogue and
Yeah.
these ridiculous characters.
Okay.
Like there are these funny moments.
Well, interesting.
Yeah, and it really seems like this blend of seriousness and humor is like a big recurring thing in a
Yeah.
lot of the reviews.
Okay.
And one review even mentions this diabolical vape scene.
Hold on. Wait a minute. A what?
A diabolical vape scene. That's what they said.
Okay, you've got to be kidding me.
No, I'm serious. And
Right.
honestly, I'm incredibly curious
Yeah.
about that. Like, how does that even...
This just sounds bizarre.
It just sounds bizarre.
But, okay,
Hmm.
I guess it makes sense in a way, like, if they're trying to play with expectations, right?
Yeah.
You use this humor to kind of draw viewers in.
Uh-huh.
But then there are these deeper themes that the story's really dealing with.
Yeah, you're totally right. And speaking of those weighty themes,
Yeah.
the reviewers are definitely picking up on those too. I mean, they talk about pride and ambition, the role that politics plays in the church,
Sure.
and even like modernity clashing with centuries of tradition. It's giving me Succession vibes.
Succession.
Yeah, but with cardinals instead of CEOs.
Oh, vying for power. I get you.
Exactly, yeah.
Interesting. So, okay, we've got the themes, but what about the way it all looks? How does the film actually look?
Oh, good point.
Yeah, because with Succession, the visuals are a huge part of it, right?
They are. And actually, speaking of visuals, one of the reviewers mentioned how the film visually captures
Okay.
this sense of modernity meeting hundreds of years of tradition,
Oh, wow.
which just sounds visually stunning to me.
Yeah, it does. And, it makes sense that the visuals would be so important
Uh-huh.
because, we're talking about the director, Edward Berger, right?
Yeah.
And he's known for creating visually compelling stories.
Yeah.
In fact, one source even called this film
Okay.
another visually spectacular slow burn. So it sounds like he's using like those visuals, the music,
Right.
to really pull you in, like fully immerse the audience
Yeah.
in the world of the Vatican.
Yeah.
Like you're right there in this conclave.
Yeah, you're right there with them. So speaking of being right there in the thick of it,
Uh-huh.
can we talk about Ralph Fiennes for a second?
Oh, Ralph Fiennes, he's in it.
Yeah, he is. And every single review
Okay.
is raving about his performance.
Clearly.
One even called it the most Ralph Fiennes performance ever.
Wow.
Which, I mean, knowing Ralph Fiennes,
That's saying something.
that's saying something.
Yeah, right.
So it sounds like he's really the anchor of this whole film.
Yeah.
Like he's the driving force behind all the drama and the tension.
Mhm.
And one source described him as so sharp he could cut through incense smoke.
Wow.
So, I mean, that just paints this picture in my mind
Right.
of, like, his presence on screen.
Totally, yeah. And it sounds like Isabella Rossellini.
Oh, she's in it too.
Yeah, she is.
And even though it's a smaller role for her,
Yeah.
it sounds like she's still making, like, a really big impact.
Oh, that's great. I mean, it really speaks to the talent involved, right? Like,
Yeah.
even the supporting characters are really carefully crafted.
Yeah.
And they all contribute to the story.
Right. So, okay, we've got this visually stunning film. We've got these weighty themes. We've got these powerhouse performances.
Right.
But what about the actual story itself?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the reviews keep mentioning these twists and turns,
so
and they're even comparing it to a thriller.
Really?
Yeah, and this is where it gets interesting, okay?
Right.
Because several reviewers allude to this, like, completely insane twist
Oh, wow.
at the end of the film.
Okay.
And apparently it ties directly into the whole message about a changing world.
Oh, interesting.
Now, I don't know about you, but that makes me want to see it.
It makes me want to see it, too.
Yeah.
Especially because,
Yeah.
one reviewer really emphasized that you don't need to be an expert in politics or Catholicism
Right.
to enjoy Conclave.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is reassuring because, honestly,
Sake.
my knowledge of papal elections
Is mine too.
pretty limited.
Super limited. So it's good to know that I don't need, like, a theology degree
Right.
to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point.
Yeah.
Because it means that the filmmakers wanted to make this story accessible to a lot of people.
Right.
They're not just making it for, people who are already super into this stuff.
Right. Exactly. So to recap,
Okay.
we've got a visually stunning thriller
Yeah.
with, like, a sprinkle of humor and some seriously good acting.
Yeah.
And it tackles these, like, big questions
Right.
about faith and power.
Yeah.
But you don't need, like, a PhD in theology to understand it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it sounds like from the reviews,
Yeah.
they've managed to pull off being both entertaining but also thought-provoking, which is impressive.
Yeah, it is. And it's bringing me back to this one thing
Okay.
that I keep thinking about, which is this contrast in tone that the reviewers are pointing out.
Right.
You know, how can a film be both a sassy papal soap opera and this, like, sharp examination of faith and politics? Like, those seem like
I know, it's so strange.
totally opposite approaches.
It is, and, one reviewer actually called it a stupid religious thriller, but then admitted that it can't help but occasionally make sweeping statements on humanity and organized religion.
Wow.
So I'm wondering if maybe it's not trying to be just one thing or the other.
Yeah.
Maybe it's embracing the fact that this is a really complex subject.
Right.
And it's showing all those different sides.
Yeah, like they're saying, even in an institution that's as seemingly rigid as the Catholic Church, there's still room for humor and drama and
absurdity.
Yeah, even absurdity.
Which brings us back to that diabolical vape scene.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right. On the surface, it's just like, what? That makes no sense. It's almost comedic.
Right.
But maybe it's supposed to highlight that clash between tradition and modernity.
Like, even these most sacred spaces.
Right.
Aren't immune to those influences of the outside world.
It's such a great image, right?
It is. And I'm picturing these cardinals in their robes with these, like, solemn faces, centuries of tradition behind them. Yeah. And then all of a sudden someone just whips out a vape.
Exactly. That's exactly what the reviewer is getting at. And it's this unexpected juxtaposition, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes Conclave so intriguing. It's not afraid to push the boundaries.
Right.
And play with our expectations.
Yeah. Like they're saying, even popes are human, right? They have moments of weakness, moments of humor.
Sure.
Maybe even...
Vice.
Yeah, even vice. And maybe that makes them more relatable.
More understandable.
Yeah.
That's a really important point. Because that relatability, that human element, could be the key to the whole film's success.
You know, you're totally right, because if you're showing these cardinals as these flawed individuals, then that allows the audience to kind of look inward and think about their own beliefs and biases.
Right.
Regardless of their background.
Exactly.
And so it's not this dry historical drama. It's really like a glimpse into the human side of the Vatican.
Exactly. Warts and all.
Warts and all. Exactly.
Right. And that's what makes it more than just a stupid religious thriller. To use their words.
Right.
It's a story about people.
Yeah.
About power. about tradition versus change.
Yeah, it's like a very human story.
It is. And I think that's what makes it so fascinating.
It is. Okay, so you've officially convinced me. I'm adding Conclave to my watch list.
Great.
But before we go any further, I think we need to dig a little bit deeper into the specifics of, like, the plot and the characters. Yeah. Because there's a few more interesting things in these reviews that I think you're going to want to hear.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with it. So before we move on, we were talking about this really interesting blend of elements in Conclave. Like everything from the cinematography to, you know, those unexpected vapes in a story about a papal election. It's like,
it is.
What is going on?
I know. And it's like they took all these completely different pieces, right? Like religious drama, a little bit of political thriller, even some dark comedy. And they somehow blended it all together into this cohesive, captivating story.
That's really skillful filmmaking. And they're not shying away from the complexity of it. Like they're embracing those contradictions. And it feels like, you know, they want the audience to question their own assumptions about the church and the people in it.
Yeah, it's making me think about, like, how we perceive these big institutions like the church as unchanging and monolithic. But in reality, they're made up of, you know, people.
Individuals.
Yeah, individuals with their own beliefs.
Right, exactly.
And motivations and flaws. And, you know, I think those stories can be just as interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what Conclave seems to be doing.
Yeah.
It's tapping into that human element.
Yeah.
It's giving us this look into the church, but through this lens of relationships and power dynamics.
Right.
You know, it's not just dogma and ritual.
Yeah.
It's about the desires and ambitions that drive these people.
Speaking of human desires, I think we need to circle back to the ending for a second.
Okay. Because you mentioned this completely insane twist.
Right.
And, you know, it ties into this exploration of a changing world without, like, giving anything away.
Yeah.
Can you give us a sense of what kind of twist we're talking about here?
I wish I could, but I really don't want to spoil the surprise.
Yeah.
But I will say that it seems to challenge what we think a papal conclave can be.
Okay.
And maybe even what the future of the church might hold.
Okay, now you've got me even more curious.
Good.
It's like they're taking this centuries-old tradition, right?
Yeah.
And injecting it with a dose of modern unpredictability.
Right, modern day, unpredictability. And I think that's reflected in the characters themselves, too, especially Ralph Fiennes' character.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one reviewer said that his performance was so intense, he could cut through incense smoke.
Wow.
So that kind of gives you a sense
of
a character who's not afraid to
shape things up a bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's Ralph Fiennes.
Right.
He always brings that intensity to his roles.
Right. But you put him in this setting.
Yeah.
With all the traditions of the Vatican. It just feels even more potent.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And remember, he's guiding us through this story.
Yeah.
So everything he does, everything he says, really impacts how we experience the whole conclave.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, speaking of experience, several reviewers mentioned the film's, pulse-pounding score and symmetrical and purposeful cinematography.
Oh, interesting.
It sounds like they're really creating a very specific atmosphere.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to create this feeling of claustrophobia.
Okay.
Like you're surrounded by all these ancient rituals and power dynamics.
Yeah.
It's like you're not just watching the story unfold.
Right. Yeah.
You're drawn into it.
Yeah, like you're in the room with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a really effective technique for a story like this where there's so much happening behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Like we're getting a glimpse into this world that's normally hidden from us.
Exactly. And it's that sense of secrecy, right?
Yeah.
And things happening beneath the surface that just adds to, like, the suspense and the intrigue.
Totally, yeah. And you're constantly wondering,
like,
what are they hiding? What's really going on here?
Yeah. Okay, so we've got this visually stunning film, right?
Yeah.
We've got this, like, complex and unpredictable story. We've got these powerhouse performances.
Right.
But what about the message? Like, what are the bigger themes that...
That's where it gets really fascinating.
Yeah.
Because the reviewers are talking about all kinds of different themes.
Okay.
Like everything from faith and doubt to the role of politics within the church.
Right.
And even that clash of tradition and modernity that we've been talking about.
Right.
It feels like they're asking some big questions about the future of the church.
Yeah, like its place in the world as it is now.
It's like they're taking this institution that we see as unchanging.
Right.
And they're showing us all the inner turmoil.
Yeah.
Like the struggles and the debates that are going on behind the scenes.
And by doing that, are they saying that this isn't just a film?
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
It's a film that can connect with anyone who's ever thought about these big questions of faith and power.
Yeah.
You know, the search for meaning in a world that's constantly changing.
Yeah. And that brings us back to like the importance of those individual stories.
Right. Those individual stories within those bigger narratives.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like they're reminding us that even institutions that seem so monolithic, like the Catholic Church, are still made up of people.
Individuals.
Yeah, with their own perspectives and stories.
Right. By understanding their stories.
Yeah.
By acknowledging those human complexities. We can actually understand the bigger picture better.
You know, you're right. It's giving us this deeper understanding of like the challenges facing the church.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes Conclave so compelling.
Yeah.
It's timely. It's not just a historical drama or a political thriller.
Right.
It's this reflection on what it means to be human.
Yeah, it's like searching for meaning
in
an uncertain world.
Yeah, and feeling connected.
You know, it makes me think about that diabolical vape scene again.
Oh, I know. Can't let that one go, can we?
I can't. It's like such a...
I know.
It's such an unexpected...
It is.
Yeah.
And it's like this little wink from the filmmakers.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're reminding us that even in the midst of all this seriousness and tradition, there's still room for humor and absurdity.
Absurdity, yeah. And maybe that's a key takeaway from Conclave, right?
Yeah.
It's this movie that embraces complexity, that it acknowledges that human element, even within like the most sacred institutions. It's like they're saying, even popes are people. They have their quirks, their vices,
right?
And maybe that makes them more
relatable,
still
human. Yeah, it's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And I think it leaves us with a lot to think about as we head into the final part of this deep dive.
Okay.
So what are your initial impressions so far, based on what we've talked about?
Honestly, I'm more intrigued than ever.
Good.
It sounds like a film that's entertaining, but also thought-provoking.
Yeah, and it seems like they've managed to find that balance between suspense and humor and those deeper themes in a way that's really engaging and unexpected.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Good. Well, in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to get into those themes even further.
All right.
We're going to talk about that ending and what it might mean for the future of the church.
Sounds good.
So stay with us.
Okay. So we're back. And I am ready to like tackle this final act of Conclave.
All right, let's do it.
Remember that like insane twist that everyone keeps bringing up?
Oh, yeah. The twist?
Yeah, so I think we need to get into it, but
okay.
Tread carefully, no spoilers.
Of course. We don't want to ruin the surprise. But we can talk about, you know, the hints that the reviewers have dropped.
Okay, yeah.
Like what makes it so impactful.
Right.
One of them called it a contemplative end that changes everything, which, you know, it's not just some random shock.
Right. It's got to be more than just a whodunit reveal.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels like it's got to be connected to all these larger themes.
Right.
You know, the changing world, the church's place in it, maybe even the nature of faith itself.
Exactly. And you know, remember that reviewer who said that the twist is revealed through smoke, mirrors, vapes, and the Vatican's biggest plot twist.
It's such a weird combination.
It is.
But I kind of love it.
It points to that collision of old and new, you know?
Yeah.
The sacred and the...
Unexpected.
Totally unexpected.
The vapes.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm picturing like this really dramatic climax, right?
Cardinals all gathered in the Sistine Chapel. Smoke is like billowing.
Yeah.
The tension is so thick you could cut it with like papal knife or something.
Right.
And then suddenly someone whips out a vape.
I love it. Dramatic music swells.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I like.
It sounds like they're really playing with those contrasts to make a memorable ending.
Okay, so let's talk about the impact of this twist for a second.
Okay.
What are the reviewers saying about how it affects the church and, like, the characters?
Well, one reviewer said that Conclave ultimately nurtures a sense of relief within its little societal microcosm.
Okay.
Which, I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how shocking the twist might be, it could actually be a positive thing.
Okay.
Like, even a necessary thing.
So not about destruction, not about scandal, but about, like, evolution, like shift in perspective so the church can move forward, adapt. And that makes that sense of relief even more interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like the film is saying that change can be a good thing.
It can.
Like, even radical change can be a source of hope and not fear.
Yeah, I love that. Especially for a story about the Catholic Church.
Right. It just makes me think about how, like, we as humans just resist change.
We do.
Even when it could be good for us. We cling to what's familiar, the way things have always been done.
Yeah.
But Conclave seems to be saying, like, embrace it, even when it's uncomfortable.
You grow. You renew.
Yeah. And maybe that's the message, right?
Yeah.
The church, just like everything else, needs to evolve to survive.
To stay relevant.
Yeah, to stay relevant. You've hit the nail on the head. And that's what elevates Conclave, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a thriller. It's not just a drama.
Right.
It's really making you think.
It's a reflection on the human condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, that search for meaning and connection.
Okay, well, you've convinced me. Conclave is going straight to the top of my watch list.
Awesome.
But before we wrap up, I do want to bring up the diabolical vape scene one last time.
Oh, come on.
I know.
We can't escape the vape.
I can't. It's just so perfectly in line with, like, the film's willingness to just challenge those expectations.
I know. It's great. It's like a wink.
Yeah.
From the filmmakers.
Right.
Like, even with all this seriousness and the tradition, there's room for
humor and absurdity.
And
maybe that's the real takeaway from Conclave. It embraces, like, that complexity, right?
Yeah.
It acknowledges that human element, even within these, like, really sacred institutions. Like, they're saying, hey, even popes are people.
Right.
And they've got their quirks.
And maybe that makes them a little more relatable.
More relatable. More human.
A little more human.
Well said. Well, I think on that note, it's probably time for us to wrap up.
Right.
But thank you to everyone for joining us.
Yeah.
For this deep dive on Conclave.
Absolutely. And until next time,
keep
exploring.
Yeah, keep questioning.
Keep an open mind.
And we'll see you next time.